for a long time. Robert, thanks for coming on. You're on with Roger Stone, former head of the Trump campaign, who obviously Trump is against war with Russia and what's happening in Syria. So we appreciate you coming on. What did this Russian insider specifically tell you, and what's changed since a week ago with the Russians wanting a peace deal? Is that because they're concerned about Saudi Arabia?
Well, thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me. It's good to hear Roger, too. Well, basically, this source who's close to Putin told me at this point, when things were at a crisis stage, Turkey was threatening to do a full-scale invasion of Syria. The Saudis were also eager to go in and join them, and they wanted the United States to be part of this invasion. And the Russians have, according to the source, about 20,000 total personnel. I mean, some are frontline troops and some are support people. And so the Russians were facing the possibility of annihilation of those people. And even though it's a violation somewhat of their general idea of when they would use nuclear weapons, I was told by the source that Putin made it clear to the Turks that if these 20,000 or so Russians were about to be annihilated, that the Russians were prepared to use tactical nuclear weapons to stop this invasion. Now, shortly after that, President Obama apparently was persuasive enough with the Turks and the Saudis to at least calm them down. He didn't flatly forbid them from invading, I was told, but he made it clear the United States would not join them, and that really created some space for Secretary of State Kerry and Foreign Minister Lavrov to hammer out this partial ceasefire that's supposed to go into effect tomorrow or over the weekend.
Well, obviously, you've broken a lot of big stories over the years. You've got a lot of credibility. But right after you put this out, and we have the Saudis threatening to use nukes, which is unprecedented, admitting they have them, and all this, to then see suddenly a brokerage deal happening shows just how serious, how close to midnight we've gotten, and shows how dangerous this situation is. Russia with total sanctions now on Turkey, and Russia, more credibility to what you're saying, because the Saudis have already said it, is remember 888, when the West basically went into Georgia and went all the way up to South Ossetia and Abkhazia and killed all those Russian troops in that demilitarized zone at the UN base. The Russians came in with medium-range nukes and said, we'll use them if NATO doesn't pull out, and NATO did. Dick Cheney blinked. So it shows the insane brinksmanship, and Obama, to a great extent, is being advised by the neocons, and these people are insane, and none of them have been in the military. And it's our military that continues. And I've had Colonel Schaefer on years before Cy Hirsch came on and said, General Dempsey told Obama 3 years ago, you're not sending ground troops in and we're not bombing for al-Qaeda. So again, there's this not mutiny, because we have a globalist mutiny over America. We have the military, never before in U.S. history at this level, actually holding back the neocons. I want you to comment on that, Robert Parry of consortiumnews.com. But first, Mr. Stone, your take on what I just said.
Well, first of all, let me say I followed Robert's career for many years, and I'm a big fan of the incredibly seminal work you did on Iran-Contra, really first rate. And I'm delighted to be with you today. I think that if you look at all these foreign countries, many of them fear the rise of Trump, because now you finally have a world leader who is unbought and unbossed, whose only responsibility would be to the American people.
And who doesn't want nuclear war?
And who does not want nuclear war. Even last night, his comments about the Middle East shows that he is dedicated to peace. Donald Trump understands that the only people who benefit from war are the munitions manufacturers. So I think—
And the munitions are too big now. We have to stop that business.
The political class is petrified about an American president who puts America first, and whose a fundamental a principle of foreign policy would be simple. Is it in the interests of the United States?
Absolutely. Mr. Parry?
In that sense, as Roger points out, Trump is really sort of a realist, and realists have become an endangered species in Washington, where the neoconservatives and the liberal interventionist sidekicks that they have essentially taken over the establishment on foreign policy. And so the old realists, who did exactly as Roger said, they always weighed American interests against getting involved. And this goes back really to the beginning of the country, when Washington and Adams and Jefferson said, avoid foreign entanglements.
That's right.
And John Quincy Adams said, it's not our job to go search for the world for monsters. That's sort of been lost.
Yeah, we now do the opposite of that. That's all we do.
Yeah, and make no mistake.
People.
I
think to pick on Roger's point, that there is now an hysteria going on. If you read the Washington Post, which is now dominated by neoconservative writers, their op-ed pages, their editorial page and op-ed pages are pretty heavily neoconservative. There are a few token liberals here or there, but mostly neoconservatives. And so you have this hysteria going on that what will Trump do? And I think they are afraid that he will shatter the establishment as we've seen it for a number of years now, and possibly bring back some of this more practical, pragmatic thinking about American foreign policy.
And that really scares them. A lot of libertarians, a lot of real liberals, a lot of professors, even Code Pink is liking him now, because who wants a nuclear war? Rogers?
No, you make a very good point. Look, the Washington Post is literally the single worst newspaper in the United States. The infiltration of the Washington Post by the Central Intelligence Agency,
naval intelligence,
goes back to the 60s. I have a 5,000-word monograph coming shortly on Bob Woodward, which completely exposes him as the fraud and the liar that he is. You'll be able to buy that at Amazon.com in about 2 weeks. I put a lot of work into this, but people need to realize that nothing Bob Woodward reports is the truth.
Total operative.
Literally nothing.
Who commands him today, though? We know it was naval intelligence and CIA to take down Nixon, but because they wanted to cover up the Kennedy thing. Who runs it now?
I think today he does it for the money, to be all honest with you.
Yeah.
I think he's in it for the money. But this guy has a very, very tenuous relationship with the truth, and he needs to be completely unmasked. This is a guy who claimed that he snuck into Bill Casey's hotel room, and then Bill Casey, the former CIA director, confessed everything about Iran-Contra. I knew Bill Casey. I know his wife, Bernadette. I know his children. I know his daughter. At that point, Bill Casey could no longer speak. It's a lie. It's a complete lie.
Wow. I tell you, this is just epic radio today. Mr. Parry, I want to apologize, too, today that I kind of cut your time short. I really appreciate you joining us. Can I get you back on for a full 30 minutes or an hour next week?
Sure, Alex. I'll be around.
Well, you just do a great job at Consortium News. Everybody needs to visit it, consortiumnews.com. I'm going to put you on the phone with Nico and set you up for a full 30 minutes or hour, whatever you'd like to do next week. Thank you so much, sir.